Hey there. Good morning, my friends. Stephanie Clairmont here with you, your digestive dietitian. And today we are talking about, is soup a trigger? Is soup causing you digestive health issues? So this is the Relief Report, all about getting you back to that place where you can feel comfortable, get rid of digestive symptoms, things like gas, bloating, discomfort, diarrhea, constipation, all that yucky stuff associated with irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel diseases, any kind of digestive health issue you're dealing with. I'm here to support you every single week to help you figure out how you can get back to feeling like your normal self. And the first thing is, let's talk about today's topic. Does soup cause your digestive issues? Can you have soup? Can you eat soup if you have IBS? The answer is, you got to know what your triggers are. Do you know what your digestive triggers are? Do you know what your triggers are? That's the question that we have to answer the first question with. Now, here's the thing. You can really eat a lot of different things, but if you don't know exactly what's triggering your symptoms, you're very unclear. You're cutting food out, you're trying to, figure it out on your own, trying to, have symptoms every day and figure out, is it this? And you can absolutely have soup. We're getting into soup season now, especially if you're here with me in Canada or in North America. It's starting to get cold. It's our winter season, and we want to be able to eat those warm, comfy foods that make us feel good. You absolutely can eat soup, but you have to know your triggers. So let's talk about some potential triggers that could be in soup that could be causing or triggering your digestive health issues. So in soup, so often when we make soup or we buy soup, there are onions and garlic. And onions and garlic are sulfurous vegetables, and sulfurous vegetables can be a potential trigger for your digestive health issues. So things like onions, garlic, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli, those kinds of things, sulfurous vegetables, can be a trigger. The other thing about onions and garlic is they're actually high in something called FODMAPs, which are very poorly digested sugars that our bodies don't break down very well. And then they're fermented in the gut, and they can cause that gas and bloating and discomfort and all those digestive symptoms that can happen. So those are two potential triggers that can be in soup. When you're making soup at home, again, it depends on the kinds of items that you're putting in and what your body can handle and what you can't. If you're making stock or broth from scratch, then you're in charge of what you're putting in there. Well, we all don't have the time, if we have little ones running around or a busy schedule, to always make stock from scratch. So when you're shopping for broth, or, when you're shopping for soup, that gets a little more tricky because you want to read those ingredient lines, and there's lots of things, lots of items that the soup company will put in. But let's say you want to make your soup, not from scratch, but you're going to use a store-bought broth or stock. You can read that ingredient line for potential triggers. So we already talked about onions and garlic and any kind of sulfurous vegetables. The other things that can sneak in there that might be a trigger for you is wheat. For some people, wheat is a trigger. For others, they can handle a little bit or a lot. Dairy could be a trigger. You can have actually like skim milk powder or buttermilk or all kinds of things in soup. Broth, not so much, but in soup you can. And for some people, they can have a little bit of dairy. Other people can't at all. So you have to know if you can have that or not. And then there's some other little sneaky things in there. You might see fructose, which is another one of those FODMAPs, poorly digested sugars that we can't have. And sometimes you can see fructose or a combination of fructose and something else in the soup ingredient line, and that could be a trigger for you, depending on what affects your body. And then you're really just kind of reading that ingredient line for all these kind of weird little things. Another one is inulin, and that's another FODMAP ingredient, not really digested very well, and sometimes that can sneak into soup as well. So we're looking for different poorly digested sugars. We're looking for different vegetables that could trigger us. And another thing for some people is actually red meat. So things like beef, lamb, and pork. We see beef more in beef stock and beef soup, not as much pork in our soups, but it can be there. Red meat is actually an inflammatory food. So that could be a trigger for you. For some of my clients in the past, they've had to eliminate red meat and just stick to lighter meats and vegetarian options For some of my clients, just minimizing those inflammatory foods like beef could really, really help. So remember, you absolutely can eat soup this cold season, and you should. It's such a wholesome food. You can put so many delicious things in there, but you have to identify your triggers. You have to know exactly what your triggers are, and understanding the process to do that is going to be really helpful for you. So my question for you today, for those of you joining me live and for everyone watching the replay, is what are your triggers? Do you know what your triggers are? If they are, share them with us in the comments. Everyone is unique and different. Everyone can handle different kinds of foods. And the cool thing is your tolerances change over time. So we want to get really clear on what our triggers are now. What's triggering these digestive symptoms? Figure out what those are, get rid of those, and start eating well and feeling good. And then over time, we can always assess those triggers again in the future and our food intolerances. So when you're going shopping for soup, whether you're eating out at a restaurant, buying a boxed soup or stock, or you're making it from home, just think about the ingredients that are going in and make it a soup that you can handle. There are actually some soup stocks that are going to be trigger-free, and you can start with a low FODMAP stock. Still know that when you're buying a stock or a broth that it could have other hidden ingredients that bother you. And a tip would be when I make soup at home, sometimes I don't even use stock, or I use like a really little bit, and then I also use water. If you're including a lot of really delicious ingredients, a lot of vegetables and chicken and things like that, then, the flavors kind of build on their own. You add a little salt, you add a little fat. You don't really need a stock, but if you do need a stock, there are some low FODMAP brands that you can purchase now in broths and stocks. And you can even just buy the ones on the grocery shelf, on the grocery store shelf, and read those ingredients for triggers for you. Remember, FODMAPs is just one potential trigger that could be irritating you. So a place to start is to get really clear on your triggers. The first place I get my clients to start is keeping a really great food and symptom journal. So you want to keep a food and symptom journal. You want to track every day, whether you're writing it, in like a notebook or on your phone or on your computer. You want to track what you're eating, when you're eating, what your symptoms are, and start to put that investigator hat on and be able to start to identify some patterns. Honestly, in the first week of the work that I do with clients in the Clarity program, just in those first 7 days, people start to identify triggers just by doing that exercise. So that's something that you can do yourself. And if you need any more help with the step-by-step process to really clearly identify your triggers and get rid of these symptoms, then you can learn more and join me in the Clarity program. I'd love to have you and work with you and support you as you go through this. We'll put the link up right now in the comment section. If you have any questions about triggers, about making or eating soup, or want to share what's going on with your life, with your triggers, if you've identified any of them, or if you're still confused, please post a comment right here. I'd be happy to answer them, or you can send me a message here on our Facebook page anytime if you need some help. I hope you have a really great day. It is a little cool out here today, so I'm definitely going to go have something for lunch that's warm and cozy. Might be a little bit of soup without my triggers in it. And I will see you again next Wednesday at 10 a.m. for another episode of The Relief Report, helping you get really clear on what your triggers are and get rid of those digestive symptoms. All right, my friends, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.